Okay, great. Thank you for the invitation. I'm today just going to talk quickly about our experience that I had at CSIRO. My name's Naomi Boughen. I'm co-founder and service director at a CSIRO spin-out company now called Voconic. But prior to being part of the spin-out company, I worked 13 years in CSIRO developing the science behind and the process of a survey series that we call Local Voices. Now, Local Voices is a community survey that we do predominantly in the mining industry, where we survey community members who live in and around a mine site operation. So it's an ongoing survey series. So we start with what we call an anchor survey, which is a longer survey, a deep dive survey, takes about 20 minutes, but that's with a registration process as part of that. So this survey response section is actually about the 15-minute mark, but we do ask people to register with us because it is an ongoing survey. What we do is have a unique ID attributed to each participant that we can link from survey to survey. The frequency of the surveys that we run varies depending on the location and context of the work that we're doing the project. So we've run the survey series on a monthly cadence, but also quarterly and 6 monthly or biannually. So that's just really based on depending on the context and I guess how closely integrated the mine or how far or the mine is from the community and involved. So it's, as you can see in this diagram here, it's a series of community surveys where we collect the data using QuestionPro as the survey platform. And then we undertake that analysis and then reporting back to the company, but also back to community. We try to have it as a transparent process as we can possible. So we report back to the company to help with their insights from the survey and to help them understand how community are feeling about the range of issues that we ask them about. But we also provide reports back to the community. So it's a two-way sort of piece that both community and company can look at the survey results there. And that leads to this listening and learning section of the Local Voices process. So it's really about relationship building and feeling heard, and then with those insights that we get from the survey results, building trust through action. So the company looking at the findings of the surveys and what the community is telling them, and also through our analysis, us being able to use a range of different statistical methods to really pinpoint the areas of most importance to the community, and those of which drive trust, which we found through our research at CSIRO, that trust is, I guess, the vehicle to acceptance of a mining operation. So the more trust an operation can have, the more likely chance that it's accepted by the community, or room to move and build that relationship with the community. So that's the Local Voices process there. And again, just another, I guess, infographic to show the process. Again, starting, so it's a time series that we sort of do over and over again. Some of our projects, the CSIRO projects now are on their 3rd year. And going through iterations where we might have an anchor survey, a couple of pulses, and then another deep dive, either a year or 2 years later down the track, depending again on what makes sense in the context. And so I guess the point again around this ongoing nature of the survey series is so that we can build data sets that look a little something like this, where we can get trend data over time. So you'll see this is sort of data back to 2017 and has been collected through to 2020, October 2020. And so we can look at, how the community over time has been rating levels of trust and also acceptance. And nicely, you can see that trust and acceptance tend to move. And this is what our research was initially, was to show that trust is the driver of acceptance. There you can see it, while trust is lower, it does run a similar trend to acceptance. So what we do in our work is to then say, okay, well, this is your levels of trust and acceptance over time, but also delve into what is driving trust. So we use path analysis to really delve down into what is it that's driving those trust levels, and so that the companies can try and focus in on those particular things, because those things, while there's some commonalities that we've found from community to community, there are also things that are quite unique depending on context. So for us to be able to highlight to companies, you know, what's really important to their particular community and what areas need addressing the most is proving to be pretty critical, because we've found mining companies are quite good at measuring and monitoring all sorts of things, from, you know, their machinery or production levels, certainly their financials, definitely, and, you know, things like environmental management and all sorts, but they, for a long time, haven't really had a systematic and ongoing, more real-time way of measuring and monitoring community sentiment and having a good understanding, a systematic understanding of what a community sentiment might be in their community. So this process that was developed in CSIRO is what we now do as a company called Vaconic, and that is because the science and the process that we've developed over the time within CSIRO matured to a point where it was delivery. We were looking to be able to deliver to lots of companies all around the world. So at the moment, we're delivering local voices to, I think it's 5 different companies, 5 different countries, sorry, and I think up to 8 different companies within that, 16 different sites or communities that we're delivering local voices to. And so CSIRO's remit is really around new science and you know, research. So taking this process now into a more mature phase is to scale that and deliver it into more places around the world. So quickly just touching on some of the items that we touch on in our surveys. So there's the regular items that we ask in each and every survey in around, you know, contact experience with the company, environment, local jobs, housing, feeling that benefits of mining have been fairly distributed, and feeling heard, which is really critical, we've found, to the relationship between people and company. And then, of course, trust and acceptance, which are the key sort of metrics that we look to as, you know, pretty critical in that relationship management. And then also, though, we've built in focus topics to keep it interesting and also informative for a company as they move through the various processes that they do. As part of their, you know, business as usual operations, they've got things that they are interested to learn about also. So we build in focus topics that might touch on community wellbeing or, you know, shifts and rosters that, you know, have all sorts of, I guess, indirect and flow-on impacts through to community that might impact things like being people having capacity to volunteer or participate in community sport after work and those sorts of things, or you know, being involved in the community and that sort of thing. And most recently, we've had a focus on asking people about COVID-19 and how they're feeling about COVID-19 and the effect that it might be having on their community. And so that's something that we've built into our surveys most recently as well, and continue to monitor and measure that, because we're finding that, of course, in different communities, people are having different impacts. So we feel that it's important to keep, you know, a good understanding back for the company to see what level of support that they can provide for their communities in which they work. So these are just a bit of a map of the work that we've been doing with CSIRO. So working in Australia, Brazil, Chile, and Argentina. And then also as Vaconic, we've got projects starting in Ecuador as well. So building out and looking toward doing some work through the African continent as well. well shortly, hopefully, fingers crossed. So which brings to the topic that I was going to share today, which is actually around the use of the offline tool app that QuestionPro have, because in all of these areas, mining often, more times than not, are in locations that don't always have the best internet connection. So we do self-completed online surveys as an approach to our data collection. But what we did find is that even in an Australian context, the locations in which we were looking to collect data were locations that didn't always have great internet connection, which I was actually a bit nervous about today's connection, because I'm actually in central Queensland this week, out at visiting a mine in Tieri, Queensland. And when I arrived, there was very little. They had an outage, so I was very nervous, but it got back just in time, and it's been perfect today. So, but we had the offline app uploaded just in case, and had that, then, you know, we can upload as we need. So it was good to know that we had that facility should we have needed it, which is good. So when we are in the likes of Brazil and Argentina as well, we have chosen to do face-to-face interviews rather than the online completion, just so that we can sort of more verbally explain the process and run through people through our information and informed consent processes. So that's also really great to be able to use that offline app. So I guess the point of the delving in today is to look into the offline app and just the experiences that we've had at CSIRO using that, and the benefits that we've found through our project work, and how it's been useful for us to still be able to undertake, rather than perhaps doing paper-based surveys where then you have to come back and do data entry. This offline tool enables you to still collect on a device, and it then just be uploaded once you get back to somewhere that has secure and stable internet connection. So saving a long haul in the data collection or data entry phase, which I certainly was very pleased to that it was in existence, given that I would be the one doing the data entry. So that was a very nice find when we first found the offline app. So this is, again, in terms of using the QuestionPro app, this is one of our data collectors that goes around with an iPad or a device. It doesn't have to be an iPad, just a tablet, with the QuestionPro mobile app uploaded and accessing the surveys. We added 5 keys, device keys to our license to use, so that we had 5 data collectors in the field. So they each had a device key each, which then you can also attribute an ID to. So when you're going back through for data quality assurance purposes, you can have a look through the data to check that the data collection is happening as it should, and that there's no inconsistencies depending on which data collector is doing the survey and those sorts of things. So I've just listed here 6 key features that we found really useful with the QuestionPro offline app. As I said, we had 5 device keys, 1 for each data collector. The installation is easy. It was just a matter of going through to the app, like an app store, and downloading it onto the device. And then while you still do have internet connection, downloading the survey that you're wanting, and having that then based on the device. And then once you go back, you do your data collection all offline, no internet connection needed. And that when you get back into a Wi-Fi network or mobile network, then you can upload the data again. And the reason we like that, again, apart from the data entry that comes alongside paper-based survey, is that it's all coming back to CSIRO as the data collection agency. it's not a matter of 1,000 files in 1,000 different locations and that sort of thing. So that's the other thing that we really liked about it, is that once the data was uploaded, it was all uploaded into one instrument, into one database that we could then extract for our data analysis. So that had a range of benefits, you know, in terms of having one file, but also in terms of managing, you know, people's data. And I think that's a real bonus of being able to have that in one central location there. As I mentioned before, the IDs that come alongside the device keys is another thing that we could use to, just for our quality assurance purposes in terms of our data collectors, just to have a quick check over the data collection there, just to make sure everything was in check. And the local language settings. Now, we haven't used the translation feature that was just described, but just in terms of, because it's a global project, even our data collectors have good, speak different languages. So being able to use the app in different languages, we found useful also. And we didn't experience any data syncing or data transfer issues. So can't complain in terms of the efficiencies that come alongside that. So there were no instances where we lost data off of the offline app at all. So that's good. So that's all I really wanted to share with you, is just our experiences of that, and then happy to answer any questions people might have.
Thanks a lot for sharing your experience, Naomi. It really means a lot. I think right now, this is one of the best use cases that we could have shared with everybody. It clearly defines the challenges, and also how you were able to utilize such small things to have such big impact, right? I think it really brings that to the table. Thank you for sharing this with us. Right now, I don't see any questions coming in, but we'll redirect them to you if anybody has any questions within the panel itself. And we are happy that your internet connection was stable and you were able to make it.
Yes, so am I. I'm very relieved.